All right, guys, I will be back in just a second, and then we're going to get started. Alrighty. So real quick, I'm just gonna check and make sure we're actually working right. I think it is, but let's just double check here because I want to make sure that we have this right and it's not sounding like complete ass before I keep going. So give me just a minute, guys. So is this working? I think it's working. I'm just checking here. Okay, yeah, sounds good. Sounds good to me. So I think we're just going to go ahead and just get started here. Okay. Take that off then. Go. All right, now I've got chat up in front of me so I can actually see what's going on. And now we're going to go ahead and just start and jump into this. So if this is my first time doing this, doing a politics stream like this. And one of the things that I decided to do is I have this little, I've got a spreadsheet of 6 things we can go over today. I'll probably make 6 little videos about them, and then we're gonna read them, we're gonna watch them, and then we're gonna react to them. So up on the schedule today, we've got monkeypox cases in Canada. No reason to panic, says epidemiologist from CBC News. We have Canada's facing a terrible food crisis, says Maple Leaf CEO from the Globe and Mail. We have on the Ontario election, Doug Ford going backwards with sex education from Left of the Box. Conservative leadership race. Canada's biggest problems. I wanted to watch this, but I wanted to watch this live. This is Jordan Peterson's interview with Pierre Poilievre. I hate both of these people, but I think it'll be hilarious and it'll be fun to watch and break down all the bullshit that they're talking. Federal politics would be our last one, and it's from CPAC, and it's one of their little outburst segments. What would it take for you to be more interested in federal politics? So today we're going to start with monkeypox cases in Canada. And yeah, we're just going to, let me go ahead and open this up here. We'll put this here. And let me just make sure we have audio. One second here. I think I need to turn off the music now that I've got video going so I can actually hear what's being said. And I'm going to check the audio here one more time after I start the video playing. So just give me 1 second, guys. I just want to make sure that it actually sounds right.
Described the unprecedented outbreak of monkeypox in developed countries as, quote, a random event that appears to have been caused by sexual activity at 2 recent raves in Europe. Earlier today, the WHO answered questions from the public about the emerging monkeypox outbreak.
Okay, so yeah, it sounds all right. It's a little bit quiet. Let me just fix that real fast. Turn the volume on the desktop audio up a little bit, and I think we should. So let's go back to the beginning here. Let's watch this, and let's see what we have to say.
While a leading advisor to the World Health Organization described the unprecedented outbreak of monkeypox in developed countries as, quote, a random event that appears to have been caused by sexual activity at 2 recent raves in Europe. Earlier today, the WHO answered questions from the public about the emerging monkeypox outbreak seen in North America and Europe, emphasizing the disease is spread through close physical contact and can be identified by a rash.
Okay, so that's good to know. Watch out for rashes when you're having sex with people, guys. Don't do that. I mean, do it. Have all the sex. But, like, make sure you're not getting monkeypox, because that sounds like it would suck.
We're looking for people who have rash, so we can help them first and foremost to understand what their risk is. And we should say that most of the people who have been identified so far have had more mild disease, or let's say not severe disease. But anyone they come in contact with needs to be informed so that we can prevent onward spread. And the thing I just want to say here is that this is a containable situation, particularly in the countries like where we are seeing these outbreaks that are happening across Europe, in North.
Okay, so that's good. And I know that there is actually a vaccine that works for this already. One of the smallpox vaccines that is given out in the U.S., and I would assume Canada as well, it does provide protection for monkeypox. I'm not too concerned about this one, but you should always be on the lookout for weird rashes and things anyways, I guess.
North America as well. But we can't take our eye off the ball of what's happening in Africa as well, in endemic countries.
The WHO says they'll be making recommendations soon about who should get vaccinated to help with monkeypox. Priority would go to those who are in greater need. Health officials in Toronto are investigating the city's first suspected case of monkeypox.
Okay, so there are cases in Canada now.
Epidemiologist and cardiologist Dr. Christopher Labos. He shared what his biggest questions and concerns are about the disease.
Yeah, I don't know much about this.
The question now is, how is it spreading? Because we don't usually see a lot of monkeypox outside of Africa, and we don't see a lot of human-to-human transmission. Most of it is animal-to-human. So the question is...
That's a little sketch, bro. If you got monkeypox from an animal, maybe you should stop doing bestiality. I don't know. I mean, it feels like that's how they're saying you normally get monkeypox. So if you get monkeypox from sex, and most of it is animal to human transmission, don't do it.
How is it spreading, and has something changed? Because you would ask yourself, like, okay, we always see some monkeypox, but why are we seeing more of it now?
That's bad.
So
Oh god. Oh god.
Is it transmitting more easily than it was?
Okay, yeah, no, homie, if if your hands look like that, yeah, no, we're good, bud.
Was before, because if it is, then we're gonna have to
Glad
take
I'm not-
certain steps to try to combat it.
Glad I haven't
This
eaten
is
anything
just
yet.
Random, if we're just seeing more of it because COVID
Yeah, we'll full
restrictions
screen.
lifted and we're seeing more international travel, then that is explainable, and then that means it's also going to be containable, and we probably won't have to do much beyond what we normally do, which is contact trace and get people to isolate and contain the outbreaks before they get too large. It's concerning in a sense in that we have to understand what's going on. We have to monitor the cases, we have to confirm how many of them there actually are, and we have to contact trace and isolate all their contacts. So there's definitely work to be done. But we're not at a point where the public needs to panic for a couple of reasons. One, the number of cases is still very small.
All right. So I agree that we probably don't have to worry about this one, because there's no airborne transmission of monkeypox from what I read before. So like, this isn't going to be another COVID situation, but they still have to make sure that this doesn't spread out of control, because if it does spread out of control through normal physical contact or sexual contact or any other form of contact that this gets transmitted by, they're going to need to know who had it, where it came from, and how they got it, and from who they got it. That all makes sense. I just don't want this to be this shouldn't be a huge issue, but I do want to I will look up a little bit more info on this.
So unless you've traveled to Central or Western Africa or come into close physical prolonged contact with somebody who has monkeypox, you're probably not going to get sick. Like, this is not something you're going to catch from somebody at the grocery store in the same way that you could with COVID. So for most people, this is not a concern yet, but it is something that public health and the WHO needs to look into to understand why this is happening right now.
Okay, so yeah, let's just go ahead and see if we can find anything else about this real fast, because I don't think it's really that big of an issue, but I'd rather cover a little bit of it and make sure that we have like our bases set and we know exactly what's going on. I don't think that this is a major concern, but you know, we have cases in Canada now, so let's see if we can figure out if this is actually going to be an issue. So 1 second. Let's see here. Monkeypox Canada? Let's see. What do we have? From the CBC 2 hours ago. The confirmed cases include a minor with another 20 to 30 people under investigation. Quebec to start vaccinating against monkeypox as cases climb to 25. Quebec will start vaccinating some people with a smallpox vaccine in order to combat the spread of monkeypox in the Montreal area. Quebec's public health director, Dr. Luc Boyot, said Thursday that 25 cases of monkeypox have now been confirmed in the province. 14 of them are in the city of Montreal, and all the cases are tied to the greater Montreal area. About 20 to 30 more cases are also under investigation, he said. He underlined that the spread of monkeypox was a serious situation, but said it is not sweeping through the population like COVID-19. We aren't expecting a rapid, huge number of cases. That's why I think it can be eradicated. To that end, Beaulieu said that the smallpox vaccine, which hasn't been routinely offered in Canada for decades, will be offered to those at high risk of contracting the disease, such as those who have been in contact with confirmed cases. Beaulieu said the province has access to hundreds of doses at the ready. Vaccination will only occur after a recommendation from public health, and it will not be open to the general public. That makes sense. The goal will be to vaccinate targeted individuals within that 4 days, but vaccination can be offered up to 14 days, she said. All right, yeah, no, that seems reasonable. This isn't an airborne disease. This isn't an airborne virus, so we're not too concerned. But it is one of those things that if it does get out of control, then they're going to have to start using up smallpox vaccines. And as we've seen, I mean, I think people are probably more likely to get the smallpox vaccine than they are to get the COVID one, especially when you see the physical effects of this disease. Some of these images from this video here are quite gross.
Monkeypox.
Like, you know, get the vaccine if you get sick, because you don't want to get this shit on your hands or on your body. So yeah, no, that makes sense, and I think that's going to be the end of this monkeypox segment. So yeah, if you enjoyed that one, make sure to keep watching. All right, so yeah, we're gonna go on to our next topic here. Our next topic is, let's just go through it. We're looking at the health and food and economy. Canada's facing a terrible food. Sorry, let's start this segment over here. Hey everybody, so today we're going to be looking at Canada's facing a terrible food crisis, says Maple Leaf CEO Michael McLean. We're going to be looking at an article from the Globe and Mail, and we're going to take a look at that now. So again, I haven't read through any of these and I haven't looked through them. I just saw the headlines and I thought that these would be important to go over because food crisis seems like a bad thing. So let's just go ahead and read through this. Terrible tragedy is unfolding across Canada where 5.8 million people are living in food insecurity, says Maple Leaf Foods. They do not have adequate access to food due to financial constraints, and the total has increased steadily over the past 15 years. The figure drops slightly at the start of the COVID-19 outbreak with the rollout of government pandemic benefits, but is again on the rise according to Stats Canada. Okay, give people more money. It's not that hard. CERB was very effective in reducing poverty. It was very effective in reducing food insecurity and homelessness and housing insecurity. We need to bring that back as a permanent program. Valerie Tarasuk, a nutritional... I'm just going to zoom this a little bit. Hold on one sec. Valerie Tarasuk, a nutrition sciences professor who leads a food security research team at University of Toronto, estimates that about 16% of Canadians live in food insecure households. Among the food companies that have been vocal about the continuing crisis, the response has been to focus on supply and how to increase it. Other companies have responded by raising their donations to food banks and other charities. Yeah, so donations to food banks and charities are great, and I'm not saying don't do it, but that's not going to solve the problem. The other thing is if we're just focusing on supply, that's good, but these companies are not incentivized to increase supply. We've seen that with oil. That's why gas prices are so freaking high. There is capacity in the United States and in Canada right now for us to be producing more oil to relieve stresses on the economy due to high gas prices. But the companies will make less money because then the gas price would go down. I hope that Maple Leaf isn't doing the same thing with their products, but it would not surprise me in the least if they did, because they're a publicly traded company. They kind of have to. They have that shareholder responsibility to increase profits if they can. So as nice as it is for Mr. McCain here and Maple Leaf to come out and say that we're entering a food crisis, that's great, but you are also one of the biggest manufacturers of products in Canada, so you can fix that. But in an interview with the Globe and Mail, Mr. McCain, who announced earlier this month he will step down as Maple Leaf's chief executive next year, explained why those approaches are based on myths. Food insecurity is not about food. The fundamental drivers of food insecurity are not food. Canada has an ample supply of food. Okay. Instead, it is really about the systemic issues, Mr. McCain said. He pointed to multiple factors tied to food insecurity: income inequality, poverty, mental illness, access to skills, including financial nutritional skills, and racism. Based, Mr. McCain. Based. It's all of those systemic issues that are at the core of food insecurity, he said. 100%. Wow. Okay. In 2016, Mr. McCain stated that the Maple Leaf Center for Action on Food Security was started with a goal of reducing food insecurity by 50% by 2030. The center conducts research and provides funding to programs and charities aimed at reducing food insecurity. Last month, Maple Leaf Foods pledged an additional $10 million towards the center, bringing the company's contributions to the charity to $20 million. In addition, Mr. McCain has personally donated $5 million to the cause. Okay. I mean, I think I want to do a little bit more research into what Maple Leaf has done and see if there's any major issues there, but all of that sounds really good. Experts have long emphasized that food insecurity is a problem of access, not supply. They have frequently advocated for policy changes aimed at reducing inequality, such as policies include a universal basic income, based, increased social safety measures such as a child benefit and disability payments, based, and better labor conditions, based. Actually, yeah, Maple Leaf is like all unionized too. So maybe they're not a terrible company. I mean, they're a publicly traded company. They work for the profit motive. Of course, they're a terrible company, but they at least know that they're a problem, which is not something that most companies, especially like food producers, meat producers, rarely have any of these kind of statements. So that is something that is hopeful. It gives us a little bit of hope that some of these people may be changing. Unfortunately, he's retiring, so who knows what's going to happen after that. But, you know, we'll have to look more into this here in a second. So Prof. Tarasuk at the University of Toronto echoed Mr. McCain on income as the root cause of the problem. Duh, if you don't have money, you can't afford food. She said organizations such as the Maple Leaf Center help bring attention to the cause. Given record high food inflation rates, she said that in future, people with already limited incomes will likely have to compromise the quality of their food even further. But she emphasized that it's still income that's causing food insecurity, not the inflation. Totally. For me, what food price inflation does do is shine a light on the inadequacy of some income support programs and the need for better attention to the adequacy and indexation. Of course, yeah, we need, like, if you live in Toronto, you need more money than if you live in Steinbeck, Manitoba. It's just clear. Like, if you live in Montreal, you need more money than if you live in, I don't know, Red Deer. Like, yeah, your cost of living is significantly higher. So indexing and scaling disability and supports to locations is very, very, very important. The fact that our government really doesn't do that very often, it does it in some situations, but not very often, is one of the drivers of these issues, especially when we're talking about people that are working but can't afford basics like rent and food. Like, there are a lot of people who work full-time jobs, even multiple full-time jobs, and still have a hard time getting by. Prior to the pandemic, we knew that 2/3 of food insecure people were in the workforce. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so 2/3 of people that were food insecure were working in Canada. That tells you all you need to know. The fact that you can work a full-time job or multiple full-time jobs and still not be able to afford food is insane. Food and housing should be decommodified. They should be taken off of the general market and subsidized or put through a general claim system where basically if you go to the store, you pick up food for the week and that's what you get, but you don't have to pay for it, or you pay a little bit for it or something. Like, I think you can make these programs so that food itself is decommodified, where it's seen as something, it's just a right. Everybody has access to food. Everybody has access to housing. Those are the two things that we really need to be focusing on and coming up with programs that enable individuals to be able to survive. And in a large measure, I say businesses have to own that problem. Of course. Mr. McCain told the Globe that the vast majority of Maple Leaf employees are paid a living wage, and we're proud of that as a starting point. Yeah. Maple Leaf employees are mostly unionized, and mostly, from what I know, because I think there's actually a plant in Blumenort here, they do pretty well. It's grueling work, but they get paid decently. Now, I'm sure, don't get me wrong, there are definitely problems, and there's probably definitely health and safety issues there, but, you know, for the vast majority of people, that's a good starting point, and that's a good place for people to be at. Living wage, decent rights, and the ability to actually afford to live. And a lot of people that do work for Maple Leaf that I know down here are doing pretty decently. Like, yeah, does the job generally suck? Yeah, but most jobs suck. But if you're at least getting paid decently to do it, then it's less shitty. Terasuck said the chief executives have an even greater impact by focusing their ethics around employment conditions, wages, and benefits, and lobbying policymakers and other leaders in the business community to do the same. We need people to be food secure employers, and we need leadership from the business community on what it looks like to be a food secure employer. But according to McCain, while wages might be part of the solution, many solutions are needed, especially given the excruciatingly complex nature of the crisis. There are many dimensions to the problem, and there are many layers in the solution, he said. And we do feel like we have something to bring to the table, but only in the context of collaboration with other partners. Yeah, so I want to look up real quick. I just want to see if there's been any major Maple Leaf issues in the recent past, and if that's why they're kind of going all in on this. Let's just see. Maple Leaf Foods scandal. It's always good to look up scandal. There were 2008 Canada listeriosis outbreak. Let's just go to their Wikipedia page. They generally have some decent stuff here. Okay. So McCain here went out on Twitter calling out Donald Trump and talking about the flight 752 after it was shot down in Iran from the company's Twitter account. And he's been noted as a role model for crisis management. Lauded by some for his immunity and criticized by others for supplanting shareholder primacy as reactive calls for a boycott of the company impacted stock prices. Okay, so he's just becoming the executive chair and handing over CEO. Okay. Tayi reported in 2021, antitrust enforcement branch had raided Maple Leaf Foods and taken company flies off site. Legal counsel claims privilege on all seized assets, which had made the files unavailable to investigators. The documents used to obtain warrants. Applying pricing strategies used for bread alleged to be illegal to meet prices. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking was going to happen. So it looks like while this guy does have his moments, and you know they've taken some role and responsibility in helping a little bit here. $20 million is not nothing, especially in Canada. That's that's still a decent amount of money. 2019 revenue was $3.9 billion. They actually didn't make any money there, though. That's actually kind of crazy. Huh. So they had $3.94 billion in revenue, but they lost $8 million. I'm wondering if that is. I just am curious if they have like. Okay. Huh. So I would say that for the most part, this is probably. I think that this kind of piece here is a little bit of a fluff piece, but I do think that it brings up important information, and I do think that there are some good takeaways here. But I do think that there's probably a little bit more we need to look into. I want to just see what are we looking at on our stock right now? Maple Leaf Foods. Let's go 1 year. I mean, they are a little bit down. They're up year over year though, so I mean, you know, that's $3.3 billion market cap. That's a pretty decent sized company. Do they pay dividends? That's the other question. They do pay dividends, 20 cents per share. Okay. So it's a dividend paying company and they're doing relatively decently. They've had some downfalls. What happened here? 3-1. What happened on 3-1? Okay. Now we're getting a little bit further into this Maple Leaf saga. Hold on 1 second here. Maple Leaf Foods. What was this? This was March 1st. March or February, end of February 2022. What happened in February 2022? Oh, they released their financial report. I see. $527 million EBITDA. Let's see. They have a 6.8% margin, which is not insane. Plant protein sales were down. Total company sales had a margin of 8.8% before debt, and so on and so forth. Plant protein had a total drop of 4.7 year over year. Yeah, I mean, I think that probably what's going on here is that they are trying to find margin expansion near the lower end of the 14 to 16% target by the end of 2022. So I think that it's important that we look into these kind of companies, and it's important that we look into these kinds of information, because if we don't know what's going on, if we don't know why these stories are being written, if we don't know why they're being propped up, we don't know what the incentive structure behind it is. So we need to actually see, okay, what are the financial incentives here? And it looks like in this situation, the financial incentives behind this article here is directly related to stock price. And it is good PR. Not gonna lie, there was a couple base takes in here, but I think that it's still a corporation. They're still trying to make as much money as they possibly can, and if they're willing to actually make a difference here, $20 million, that's not nothing. That is something. And Mr. McCain also did donate $5 million. How much is he worth? How much is this man worth? That's the question. Because is that $5 million of 50 billion, or is that $5 million of 1.1 billion USD? So $5 million is not a ton for him, but that's still, that's still something. Let's see how. Yeah, let's see here. 2021. Okay. So this dude's a billionaire. Of course he is. His family bought a controlling stake in Maple Leaf Foods in '95. His father co-founded McCain Foods with his brother Harrison in '56. January 2020, yeah, talked about Trump and his foreign policy. So yeah, I mean, this dude is probably one of the better ones, quote unquote. But I don't think that that's really something that we're, he at least understands the problems and maybe is trying to avoid the guillotine. I don't know if it's going to save him though. All right, let's move on to our next story. If you enjoyed that one, stick around for the next one. All right, peace, y'all. Let's see here. Okay. All right, so our next one, we're going to watch Left of the Box's video on the Ontario election about Doug Ford going backwards with sex education. So let's go ahead and pull that up now, and we're going to go ahead and watch this. All right, hold on. Let's let it play. I found them the other day, and yeah, they don't. Let's try to promote each other and make things better for each other. So, all right, I'm just checking one thing here real quick. Let's see there and here. Yep. Okay. All right. Yep. All right. Let's watch this here. So this is Doug Ford going backwards with sex education. This is from Left of the Box's little collection on Doug Ford. So let's go ahead and watch this.
Doug Ford bites. Yeah. Hey, Doug Ford bites. Isn't that right, Tulip? She wanted to help out right now, as in she wouldn't shut up. So now she's going to be in this video as well.
Aw, kitty.
Do you remember when Doug Ford did this? Doug Ford reverting Ontario back to 1998 sex ed curriculum is dangerous for kids, experts say. Ontario Premier Doug Ford's decision to return the province to sex ed curriculum created in the 1990s, which doesn't include topics like same-sex marriage or cyber safety, is being slammed by education experts who say the move is regressive and puts students at risk.
So this is the same shit that's going on in the States right now, and it's the same shit that we have to fight back against, because this is just insane. You know, like, I never had a good sex ed at school. I went to school in Tennessee. They didn't even talk about it. That's not great. You know? There's been some interesting situations. But needless to say, if there's already an existing program that is, if kind of milquetoast, but understandable for most people, and he's trying to take that back to the 90s before cybersecurity and cyber safety and just like online interaction was really a thing. Like, come on, guy. Like,
turns out Tulip didn't want attention. She just wants food. Yeah.
I feel that. I feel that.
So Doug Ford did this with the curriculum. He changed it and he pushed it back to the 1990s, back when things like consent wasn't being talked about in sex ed. Now, I'm no fan of Kathleen Wynne. She did a lot of horrible things while in office, like selling off Hydro One. Remember, the Liberals helped get Doug Ford into office right now. That said, the abuse that she went through trying to push through this updated curriculum was horrendous. This update to sex ed was absolutely needed. I wish that the updated version was around when I was in school. And given her gender and sexual orientation, the attacks launched against her were horrific. And I appreciate that she stuck it through and stuck to it and actually got this updated curriculum through. So of course Doug Ford wants to get rid of any good lasting legacy she put in for the province. But
yeah, this is just what conservatives do. They're gonna always try to ratchet it back to whatever the fuck they had, whatever their regressive policy or prescriptive ideology is. They're gonna try to push it back to that. This happens every time, no matter where you're at. Yeah, so re-electing Doug Ford is absolutely retarded. If you're gonna do that, don't vote for somebody else. Even if it's even if you're gonna have to vote Liberal, actually no, don't vote Liberal. The way I see the Ontario election right now is if you live in a district, if you live in a district where the NDP can win, vote NDP. If you live in a district where the Greens can win, vote Green. If you live in a district where neither of those two parties have a chance, vote Liberal. But if you have any option whatsoever, vote NDP or Green in this election, because we need to get rid of Doug Ford. We need to get rid of all of these stupid conservatives that are in charge of these provinces, running them into the ground, selling off public infrastructure that will take decades if they're ever able to get back. So this election in Ontario is very important. It'll determine whether or not Ontario goes backwards 20 years or moves ahead with the rest of society, the rest of the world. And Ontario is probably the most important province. You could argue that it's Quebec or BC, but Ontario is generally seen as the most important province in Canada. And if Toronto goes, God, I did it again. And if Ontario goes downhill, there's going to be some major downstream effects of that. I don't know why I keep saying Toronto. I was in Toronto this week. That might be why. So this is just insane.
But that's not the only thing he did to education to make it worse. From Press Progress, Doug Ford's budget includes a hidden $1.3 billion decrease in education funding. Ontario schools likely on track for $12.3 billion shortfall over the next decade.
Yeah, fiscal responsibility. Yeah. No, fuck you, Doug Ford. This is unbelievable. You can't just decrease education funding by over $1 billion and expect nobody to notice. Budget, let's see, $30 billion in base funding for schools and another $760 million in time limited funding. All told, fiscal update was 31.56. $1.3 billion. Jesus Christ.
And it doesn't just end there with the shortfalls. From CBC News, Ontario owes teachers more than $100 million for interfering with their bargaining rights.
Yeah, like, fucking pay your teachers. This is the same thing we talked about the other day with the Air Force guys and on-base housing. If the government can't support the bare minimum, which is education, military, housing, food production, if they can't secure these basic industries, these basic like positions in our society, because they don't have money to pay for them, then we're leaning closer and closer towards failed state territory, and I don't want to live in a failed state. I already moved from America.
Yeah, Doug Ford did that. He was interfering with their bargaining rights because he hates unions.
Of course Doug Ford hates unions. Doug Ford's a conservative, regressive asshole. But the fact is that teachers' unions are the most important, and they should go on strike if they don't have the ability to get paid. And if that means a wildcat strike and a legal strike, they should do it anyways. Because this is unbelievable.
Doug Ford is planning on privatizing as much education as he can. Why would he be doing all this? Well, it helps out all of his buddies make more money.
Of course.
Not to mention, it means that when he leaves politics, he's going to have a bunch of lucrative jobs waiting for him. He doesn't care about the average person. All he cares about is making the rich richer. This election, we need to vote Ford out on June 2nd, hit the polls, and I'll say it, vote NDP. Screw the Liberals. We're in this mess because of them as well.
That's fair. Yeah, I am very anti-liberal. I'm just as anti-liberal as I am anti-conservative. So vote NDP if you can. If you want to, vote Green, because I think that the Green Party actually has some pretty good options in Ontario, especially if you live in one of the districts that could actually go green. I believe there are 3 or 4 districts right now that are like toss-ups between NDP Green or Liberal Green. So if you live in one of those districts, take a look. I don't know exactly which ones they are. We should probably do a rundown on that as well. But there are 2 to 3 that are likely green spots, likely green seats right now, and that's important. And if you want to vote NDP, vote NDP. Those are the 2 options you should be looking at right here in this election if you care about people and if you care about your fellow Ontarians. All right, guys, thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it. Make sure you check out Left of the Box on YouTube here. They do very good content, and I really enjoy it. Nice little snippets of information that allow us to react and bring more attention to some of these issues that are going on. So thanks, Sandy. That was a really good video. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the big one now. This is the longest video of the day, and I am very interested to see how this goes. This is Jordan Peterson talking to Pierre Poilievre.
When you look at Canada,
oh, and I hear his
moment,
stupid voice in the background.
what are our problems?
Uh-oh, hold on. I messed that up. Let's open that up.
When you look at Canada,
there we go. All right. So
let
me just preface this whole video here. We're going to be watching Jordan Peterson's video that he did with Pierre Poilievre. It's titled Canada's Biggest Problems, Canadian PM candidate Pierre Poilievre. The title, the thumbnail says housing, inflation, and socialism. Now, I just want to see how this goes. I don't know if we're actually going to go all the way through this. This is like an hour and a half long video. But I do want to watch at least a little bit of this on stream and record it because I want to have my live reaction to this, because I imagine I'm going to lose my shit at both of these absolute clowns. So let's go ahead and watch this. Let's watch and see what happens. And yeah, I mean, it's Jordan Peterson. Like, come on. Like, all right, let's go ahead and get into this. Let's watch it.
Canada, at the moment, what are our problems?
Well, the central underlying illness is a monstrous growth in the power and cost of the state at the expense of the agency and freedom of the people. I'm here simply restoring what already belonged to Canadians by virtue of their 800-year inheritance of English liberties going back to the Magna Carta. I'm just among the common people who are custodians of that freedom while we're alive. Edmund Burke said it's a contract between the dead, the living, and the yet to be born. And we're the living generation has the duty to pass on that inheritance. And that's what I see myself doing, is to rekindle that inheritance and pass it on to my kids, and so they can pass it on to their kids. And
we're already into determinism and passing things on to future generations while preserving traditions of the old. Curious.
And I'll pass away into the fade away into the past one.
Can you fade away now, Pierre? Thanks.
Day, but hopefully we'll have secured the freedom that we inherited for many more generations to come. And that's what I mean when I want to give people back control of their life in the present. It's also to extend it into the future. So that's
this guy is pretty much against anything climate related, but he wants to preserve the future. Okay, sure,
my
bud.
purpose. That's why I'm running. People want to support me. My pierreforpm.ca that's Pierre 4, the number 4. pm.ca is how you can sign up, become a member, and do that.
I also love how he's talking about he's running for prime minister, but he's not. He's running for the Conservative leadership, and the Conservatives are probably not going to win a general election anytime soon. Like, do they have a chance with Pierre as their leader? Yeah, I actually think they do. That is a little bit scary, but I also think that you're not running for prime minister, bro. Like,
and I would be honored to have people's support in this enterprise.
At least not right now. Like, you're running to be the candidate of, you're running to be the leader of the Conservative Party, and there's not planned to be an election for 3 more years. So, saying that this is, he's saying he's a prime ministerial candidate is just stupid. Okay, nope, we're skipping this.
Poilievre. He is the current frontrunner in the race for leadership of the Federal Conservative Party of Canada, and he is therefore a likely candidate for Prime Minister of Canada within the foreseeable future, within the next few years. The Conservatives in Canada have served historically alternatively to lead Canada, competing with the Liberals primarily at the federal or national and provincial or state level. Although the Liberals, their primary opponents, have been more historically successful, so they've served more terms. Mr. Poilievre served as a senior cabinet minister in Prime Minister Stephen Harper's Conservative government prior to the recent election of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, and has served as a member of Parliament for 7 terms. And with that brief
outsider, by the way, 7-term member of Parliament. Outsider, by the way.
Introduction. I'm going to
served as a cabinet minister. Outsider, by the way.
Turn the discussion over to Mr. Poilievre, who can fill us in on a little biographical information so we know who he is, and then we'll turn to more specific issues.
Ooh, we need to know who he is now, too.
Agreeing to talk to me today, and welcome.
Thanks very much, Dr. Peterson. Great to be with you.
Dr. Peterson. Ooh.
So we'll do Jordan and Pierre. How's that?
That's fine by me.
All right, away we go. So let's start. Who are you? Where'd you come from? And how did you get interested in politics? And why are you the man for the job here?
Thank you. Well, like you, I'm from Alberta, although further south. I come from Calgary. And
I'm from Calgary.
My folks are from Saskatchewan. They married in 1977, moved to Calgary, where they adopted me. I was born of a 16-year-old unwed mother whose mother had just died. And so she was in no position to raise a child. So she put me up for adoption, and I was blessed to be adopted by Marlene and Don Poilievre, 2 teachers from Saskatchewan, and a pretty normal upbringing. Grew up in the 80s, and I was born in 79, so my early childhood was in the 80s. It was kind of a brutal time to be a homeowner or a family because there was these monstrous interest rates. So some of my earliest memories as a child were the financial stress that my folks were going through, and a lot of people were losing their homes and their.
How did this man end up being a conservative? That's my question. You grew up with two teachers as parents. You grew up around financial insecurity. And yet you end up as a conservative? Like, how the fuck does that happen?
Livelihoods at that time.
Wait, he got into banking, didn't he? Let's find out.
I think that made an early impression on my thinking, even though at the time I didn't really understand what was happening or why. I was able to, later on, to look back at that strain and stress and then try to diagnose it when I was old enough to understand. And that kind of formulated some of my political ideologies. We can return to that later on. But I grew up middle class, couple of teachers who got divorced when I was in my mid-teens, and sort of bounced back and forth between mom and dad's place throughout my teenage years. Went to University of Calgary.
Yeah, so we do have a fair bit in common because one of my parents,
Okay, so yeah, cool. I'm.
is a teacher. They're both.
This is not. This is boring as
They
shit.
moved to Alberta. Same, lots of people from Saskatchewan did. I got interested in politics at an early age. I remember that period of inflation because, my father, and maybe your parents.
My father.
Pensions when the banks collapsed. Because the teachers did.
Mine didn't lose their pensions. We did have to move because I think in retrospect that was because of the interest rate hikes. I'm guessing that my folks were not able to pay the mortgage at the higher rates, and then we had to move to a smaller place, and we had to sell our car and downgrade our automobile and all of the above just to kind of keep.
A man who in 2022 uses the word automobile should never be trusted. For the record,
Keep our heads above water, and that would have been, I'm guessing, around sort of 83, 84, and that was a really.
Dude, you were 5. How the fuck do you remember any of this shit?
Kind of hellish time, particularly.
I don't remember shit from when I was 5, other than like memories that were told to me. I don't remember that shit. You don't like the only like picture memory I have in my head of like that time was. When we moved to California from BC, we drove this little red Hyundai down and didn't have AC, and it was in the middle of summer in California, and it was hot as shit. And I remember looking out the window and just seeing like steam coming up from like the dunes out in the distance. Like you could see like the heat gaze. I remember that. That's like all I remember about that.
In Alberta, because the central government had unleashed a wicked assault on the energy sector.
Also, the way he uses words, central government, attacks, these are very explicit rhetorical choices. We don't have a central government. We have a federal government. There wasn't an attack on the oil and gas industry, at least not in the 80s and 90s. That was like 2015, if you really want to call it an attack on oil and gas. That would have been 2015. So talking about the 80s and 90s as the good old days is a little bit sus.
Called the National Energy Program. And simultaneously, the worst of the Trudeau socialist years were coming to bear on the entire national economy. So you had 12% inflation, 12% unemployment.
20
socialist. Yeah, okay, dude.
4% mortgage
Man's a liberal, and he's like, the socialists.
rates. That's real fun for everyone.
Yes, and highest misery index in Canadian history. That's unemployment plus inflation. And
that was under Justin's father.
Yes.
Surprise, surprise. Yes.
And here we are with the same policies leading to the same results, just as the dog returns to its vomit and the sow returns to its mire, the burn fool's bandaged finger goes wobbling back to the fire, as Kipling would write. But
what a weirdo.
It was a miserable time for a lot of people. Now, I was blessed because my folks were teachers, so they ultimately didn't lose their livelihoods. We were able to, we had a modest upbringing, but I would never have called myself poor.
Okay, can we get to something more interesting? I really don't give a shit about your background or why you're doing this. All right. Ooh, left-wing ideas and socialism. Let's go ahead and watch this little section.
Market system.
Hold on.
I didn't agree with 100% of what he wrote. I still don't. However, the fundamental logic of the free market system, to me, is inescapable.
Okay, what is that logic as far as you're concerned? Why is that? Why is it inescapable?
Because
he's going to give us some capitalist realist talking points and then go, well, it's the way it always is, and it's the way it's always going to be.
In a free and open market, you can't
and freedom
unless you make someone else better off. So
that's what? No. What? No, that's not how that works at all. What? No. Say that again. Say that again.
In an open market, you can't get ahead unless you make someone else better off.
In a free and open market, you can't get ahead unless you make somebody else better off. Are you fucking high? No, that's the entire opposite point. You can't get ahead unless if you make somebody else worse. Now, you can argue in favor of that position, saying that I have the mental or technical skills that I have the ability to produce something, and I need workers underneath me who don't have those skills to help support this industry. I give them a job, and I give them money, but I keep the profits. That's like the best, least cringe version of this. But you can't just go out and say, you can't get ahead unless you make other people better, because that's not how this works. We just talked about Maple Leaf. They're fucking price cartelling their meat products while saying that they need to have a better way to solve food insecurity while they're just worried about shareholder profits. You can't do both. You have to pick one. And the fact that he thinks that you can do that, or at least says that out loud so that people hear that, is absolutely fucking insane.
Use the old apple-orange analogy. If you have an apple and want an orange, and I have an orange and want an apple, and we trade, we're both better off, even though we still have an apple and orange between us.
Yes, but we're not trading fungible good. We're not trading non-fungible goods like that in this day and age. I'm not going to a market and trading my potatoes for your grapes. I'm selling my potatoes, getting cash for it, and then I'm going to you and giving you cash for your grapes. And if there's an employee in between me selling my potatoes and getting that money, I'm going to take excess profit away from my employee because they did work as well. If I do all of the actions, if I go out and sell those potatoes myself, I get all that money, and then I go buy the grapes. Okay, then there's no excess profit, there's no exploitation there. But as soon as I hire somebody to go sell those potatoes for me, and I don't give them the proper amount that their time was spent and their effort, then it's exploitative. You can't, there's somebody loses in this situation. Which is why when I was talking about Maple Leaf, it was about, okay, yeah, most of their positions are unionized, most of their workers have a living wage, and most of their workers have, better than average salaries. But they're still being exploited regardless, because there's still shareholder profits and dividends which are going out, which is not going to the employees of the company. Therefore, directly affecting income inequality that Mr. McCain is so worried about. You can't be on both sides of this. This is a classic conservative point. Liberals at least generally understand that there's no profit without labor, whereas these guys are saying there's no exploitation with labor. What?
When you go to a coffee shop and you buy a coffee, you say thank you to the lady who gave it to you.
Thank you.
And she says, you're welcome, but she says thank you back. Now, why is that? Well, the answer is because each of you has gained something more valuable than you had before. You have the cup of coffee that's worth more than the $2.50 you paid for it.
Not true.
The coffee shop has the $2.50.
And why do you think that?
and the employee there gets 40 cents of that $2.50 that they just produced all the profits on. They probably don't even get that much because they're splitting that with like 6 other employees in the shop, which is why Starbucks is unionizing. So go ahead and unionize your Starbucks if you can. Tim should be next.
The free part of that is important. So that's the trade part. Why is the free part important?
Because that's the only way to guarantee both sides believe they're better off, right?
Why is the free part so important? Because then that's the only way for people to believe that both sides are better off. Both sides aren't better off, Pierre, and you know that. Jordan knows that. Everybody knows that. But it's the belief that both sides are better off. What the fuck is wrong with you? Jesus Christ, this is retarded.
Because in the form of taxation, government forcefully imposes a transaction. It is considered to be a transaction, taxes, right? You're paying for a whole...
Oh, now we're getting into taxation as theft? Huh, cool.
Whole plethora of services. But you didn't choose it.
No, you choose to live in this country, and if you choose to live in this country, you have to choose to pay for taxes. And if you choose to live in this country and you choose to pay taxes, then you're able to be served by those taxes. If you do not want to pay taxes in this country, move! It's not that fucking hard.
So even if you've decided that the cost of your tax bill is not worth the benefit of the government services, you have to pay it anyway. Whereas back to the coffee shop, you have to, if you don't believe the coffee is worth more than the money, you won't pay it. And if they don't believe the money is worth more than the coffee, they won't sell it.
Which is how we get to inflation. Dun, da, 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 da.
So the only way in a market system to make yourself better off is to make someone else sign.
Oh my God. No, the only way to make yourself better off is to make more profit. That's the only reason the free market exists, is to make profit. It has nothing to do with freedom. So stop giving out these bullshit claims and bullshit arguments. They're bullshit. You don't even believe it yourself.
Better off.
So why did you... Now look, lots of young people...
Even Jordan's confused. He's like, well, I mean those postmodern neo-Marxists, but Pierre.
Today either are not exposed to the ideas that you just put forward, or they don't find them persuasive, say in contrast to what appears on the surface to be the more compassionate left-wing view that's characterized frequently and sometimes realistically, by concern for the working class. Like, I worked for the NDP when I was a kid, and at that time in Alberta, Grant Notley ran the NDP, and he was an old union guy in some fundamental sense, and so were most of the people he associated with, and they did have a real concern for the working class. At least some of them did, and I would say that was particularly true of the leadership, not so much the activists. But, you were pretty young when you came across Friedman. I didn't have that experience when I was, say, the same age as you. Why did you find that persuasive in contrast to the left-wing ideas, the ideas of socialism, this rooted in this hypothetical compassion that seems so attractive to kids today?
Kids today only want to be compassionate. They don't want to care only about the profit motive. I'm an old man and I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about either. All right, we're not going to make it through this whole hour and a half, but I can't. This is brain rot. We'll watch we'll finish this section.
Because I didn't see the compassion playing itself out in any real way. It was it's a catchphrase, but
I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about socialism equals compassion. I don't. Maybe that's a thing that people say somewhere.
What we're actually debating is not who's more compassionate. There's no evidence that people on the socialist left are especially generous with their own money. Sure, they like to spend other people's money.
Define other people's money, Pierre. That's right, taxes. And you live in Canada, right? Therefore, you pay taxes in Canada, right? Cool. Pay your fucking taxes and shut the fuck up.
But what you see is really, with socialism, is Animal House playing itself out over and over again. when the Animal Farm, excuse me, Animal Farm playing itself over
That's
and over
a
again.
definite difference.
Yeah, definite difference. Animal Farm, the pigs didn't say they wanted to take the house so that they could be more comfortable and spoiled. They said they were doing it to make everyone equal and to remove the oppression. But then when they actually took the house, they became the new masters and served themselves. And that's what actually happens in socialism. It doesn't eliminate hierarchy.
So why did you buy that argument?
That's why you should be an anarchist, not a straight socialist. Hierarchies are always unjust, unless if you can prove that they're justified. And I think you can pretty easily prove that taxes are a justifiable hierarchy of a system that needs currency to survive in its current state. So this is just right-wing retards talking circles around each other that they don't even understand each other because their ideas are so incomprehensible that they don't even make sense to each other. That's the level that we've gotten to. And the slightly fash rhetoric that Pierre's been using doesn't seem to give us very much hope that he's going to do anything that would actually help anybody. And as he just said, that's not his main concern. His main concern is not helping people. It's to enforce free market principles from a freedman perspective, which is generally seen as pretty libertarian, pretty free market, and deregulation, deunionization, etc., privatization, etc., etc., etc. Top trickle-down economics, which has failed over and over and over and over and over again, and yet we have the same fucking people in that same mindset of Harper, of Reagan, of Thatcher, just continually talking up these same fucking points over and over again, expecting a different result. That's the definition of insanity, Pierre, and you're fucking insane. All right. If you enjoyed this segment, come by and watch our streams. If you really enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, guys, have a good day. All right, we're going to go to the next video. I can't do any more of this. We have one more video for the day. What would it take to make you more interested in federal politics? I need to get Jordan's fucking face off my screen. Jesus Christ, it's annoying. All right, let's see here. This is from CPAC. From Outburst from CPAC. What would it take to make you more interested in federal politics? All right, let's go ahead and just see what this is about.
What would it take to make you more interested in federal politics?
I don't know, because I'm heavily involved in federal politics in BC and connect with it at different levels. And I don't know what it's going to take to get people to wake up and be aware that politics is important in their life and it actually affects things they do from day to day. And I've thought of this question for many years. How do you get more people engaged in understanding how politics affects their lives and influences and how much power they have to influence politics?
And that's why this channel has been created. Honestly, I want to get more people involved in federal politics, whether that's from the NDP or the Greens or the Liberals or the Conservatives. I don't really care. I just want to make a community here where we can all talk about any federal issues openly and without bullshit. Because that's the only way we're going to get better. That's the only way that our country is going to improve, and that's the only way that we're going to move forward away from these bullshit systems and these bullshit policy positions that these politicians continually run on over and over and over again. And we see the degradation of our society. We see the degradation of our country over and over and over again because these politicians that are in power right now don't have your best interest in mind, don't have our best interest in mind. They have their best interest and their friends' best interest in mind. We need to change that dichotomy, and we need to do that by being more interested and more involved and more active in these places.
I used to be very involved in federal politics, got a little older, got very disenchanted from the whole thing.
Yep, that's fair.
I find it's devolved into a lot of name calling, and it's hard, I think, for the average person to sit and watch something like Question Period, which I honestly used to do in my early 20s.
So Question Period is fun to watch. I do enjoy watching Question Period sometimes. Disenchantment, disenfranchisement, disempowerment is the purpose of a bourgeois liberal democracy. The less people who vote, the less people that have an effect on policy. The less people are involved, and the more that they are turned away by these name callings and these different things, the more people just don't care, and the more that they're able to get away with. The more that the politicians in power, whether that's liberal or conservative, or NDP in this case, are able to get away with, because, well, they have no accountability to the people because the people don't care. We need to care more, because then we can actually make changes, because then the politicians have to react to us rather than the other way around. Right now, politicians in Canada only have to react to what we're saying to them, not the other way around. Or we only react to what they're saying, not the other way around. They don't react to what we say. Almost never.
And you barely even get information anymore, I think.
That's also true. There's not very many good information sources. You've got CBC, Global, CTV, and the Globe and Mail. And after that, it drops off significantly in, like, notoriety. I guess you have the Toronto Star, too. But after that, it kind of drops off significantly on publicity and notoriety of organizations that are trying to produce more news. We need more. We don't have enough right now. This is another reason why I'm doing this channel. We need more people talking about these issues. We need more people talking about different things that are going on in Canada. And the only way to actually change things for the better is to be involved. So let's be involved. Let's actually make a difference.
By listening to it. So I don't know what it would take, but certainly a shift in the way things are currently done, and a lot more civility in the House of Commons as a starter.
So yeah,
okay, civility is a bullshit line. Civility is not important in the least bit in how politics are done. If you're worried about being civil, be a liberal, I guess. I don't know.
I'm really interested in federal politics, and I'm interested in getting Leslyn Lewis elected as the next Conservative Party leader, and maybe our next Prime Minister, God willing.
Well, for me, probably a party that will actually stand up and be something other than what all the other parties are. Especially there are more traditional points of view that aren't really represented, even among the more conservative parties.
Probably hear more of the...
Tell me you're a fascist without saying you're a fascist.
Prime Minister, God willing.
Well, for me, probably a party that will actually stand up and be something other than what all the other parties are. Especially
the Conservative Party of Canada is a far-right party. The Liberal Party of Canada is a center-right party, and the NDP is a social democracy, slightly center liberal-ish party right now. They're not socialist. They're not even close. They're a social democratic party.
There are
the Greens are the only ones that sometimes flip into that socialist category. And that didn't turn out very well because that guy, Dimitri Lascaris, who was the eco-socialist, who was running in that position for the leadership, lost to Annamie Paul, who then was a failure and complete embarrassment to the party. And now that party's going to shit. Who knows if that's going to come back? They got Mike Morrison, but he's more of a he's closer to the center. And Elizabeth May is also closer to the center. So both of the Green MPs that are currently in Parliament right now are both, I would still call both of them right wing. They're both right wing. They're not conservative, but they're both right wing. Mike is probably Matthew Green is probably the furthest left MP that I've seen. And he is probably still on the right side of economics. He's still, I think, probably capitalist.
More traditional points of view that aren't really...
Traditional points of view, as in, I need to be able to beat my wife.
probably hear more of the good about it. I don't watch the news, and all I hear is bad things consistently, and what they said they were going to do, and then what they didn't do. So I think there's an election coming up, but I don't even know either side. So I think for me to be more interested in it would be just to hear more of the positive of what they've done instead of all the negative.
Some honesty among the.
I mean, there is basically no positives right now, so I feel for that guy. But yeah, there really aren't that many positives right now.
Politicians would help a lot, and some honesty among the media would help a lot. You know, you just don't know who to believe and what to believe anymore, and where to source out the truth, and yeah.
Those echo my sentiments.
It just turns people off, I think. And I think there's so much apathy among the young people. I mean, we're still connected. We still listen to what's happening, but we see a lot of apathy in younger people.
Young people, if this is true, comment on this video. Tell us why you're apathetic to the politics. I have my own reasons, but I'm trying to make a difference. I don't know if it's going to, but I'm hopeful. Let's see if we can work together and see if we can actually make some differences in this country.
I think everybody needs to be engaged in different ways in terms of communications. So you need your information offered how you want it. So sometimes I think CPAC is a perfect example of a great way of getting information about federal politics to the general populace. But everybody needs their information in different ways. So television, radio, preferably moving away from printed media, but there are some great internet-based options now. So,
because I live in a democracy, and because I'm so grateful, I don't live in countries that are not democracies, such as Russia and such as China.
And the United States.
Democracies, if people don't take an interest in doing civic actions, which they should do, such as voting.
Just knowing that my voice can be heard and there would be outcome of it. So what I'm saying is that if there was like better communication between people and government.
I think we are quite.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really. So when I was living in Steinbeck, our MP didn't even have an email address. You couldn't email our MP. And sorry. Let me take that back. There was an official .gc email, but it was never read, and you never got a response. And how many people are emailing Ted Falk? Not too many.
Engaged anyway. I really don't know what else I could do, but I think there are some issues that near dear to us is of course environment and inflation. These are two, I think, more issues that we think are pressing issues at this point.
I don't even follow politics really, because it's just all
the lesser evil.
Yeah, they say one thing, do another, promise this, do I don't know.
I understand. I think that it's very difficult to get involved in Canadian politics. Very difficult. I'm doing this because I think that it is something that I can lend my voice to and give other people a chance to get different perspectives. Whether you agree with me or not, that's totally fine. I don't care. I just think that having more voices out there talking about issues that are actually going on is important, because we don't have that in Canada that often. Most of the production that we see comes directly from the CBC, and I do generally enjoy the CBC. I think that they, especially the radio, I like listening to CBC radio when I'm driving longer distances. But there's not that many options, and I don't imagine most people my age are listening to the CBC. And I don't have cable. Like, why would I have cable? There's no point to have cable, other than to watch sports. But the internet exists, so I think that it's very difficult to get Canadians that are not interested at all in politics to be interested in politics, and that's what I want to do. I want to be able to bring more people into the fold. I want to give people voices that are able to talk and speak about different issues. I want to have people on to talk about things that they care about, and so that we can have a conversation. So if you're interested in having a conversation with me about any of these things, just send me an email, truenorthminute@gmail.com. You can jump in there and we can have a conversation. And I just really want to see where we can take this in the future. And I want to have good conversations. I want to be pushed back against. I want to have people that I agree with on. We can talk about things that we really should be pushing forward together. I think all of these things are important, and I think that we need to take a more holistic approach on politics right now, because we're heading into a very difficult time in our country. And I don't know if most people are ready for that. I know most people aren't ready for that because they don't pay attention enough. So what I want to end this video and this stream with is reach out. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk. You can be from anywhere in Canada. We'll just have a conversation. Not a debate. We're not debating. I'm not doing that. But let's have a conversation about different topics. Let's talk about it. Let's speak on, housing. Let's speak on inflation. Let's speak on homelessness. Let's speak on the environment. Let's speak on policy positions like free market versus market controlled. Like let's just talk about some of these different things that we can actually speak about right now and get our voices heard, and then let's reach out to different politicians in different places and see if we can make actual change happen. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and until tomorrow, everybody, have a fantastic day. Peace, y'all. All right, that is how I'm going to end this stream today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. There weren't too many of you here, I don't think. I'm going to keep doing this as I get lists here. You can feel free to send me something if you want. I'll go over it. But yeah, I enjoyed this, and I really hope that I can get some people in here and we can have some good conversations. So yeah, guys, have a good one. I'm going to make these segments into videos now, and yeah, have a good one.